Okay, good after excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Catalina Marulanda. I'm a lead specialist for urban development, and I work in in Latin America at the World Bank. The program says I'm a DRM specialist. I'm not. I'm an urban specialist. And I actually am I'm a civil engineer who doesn't have a lot of background per se in issues of crime and violence. I've been working for 15 years at the bank, mostly in areas of infrastructure development. And in poor areas in developing cities. And what has become increasingly constant and increasingly evident in the work that we do is that infrastructure alone doesn't solve all the problems. It only begins to solve the issues in these poor neighborhoods and these poor cities. And that unless we start dealing with some of the social issues and mainly the crime and violence issues that become prevalent in these areas, we're not doing all that we want to with the infrastructure. In Latin America, crime and violence is endemic. We have areas such as such as Central America, where substantial fractions of the GDP of the countries are spent in dealing with crime and with security and citizen security and crime and violence prevention. I come from Colombia, so I grew up in a context where violence was a big part of the everyday life, and so I think this panel is going to add a different perspective to our dialogue of cities, which has been very positive, and where all of this fantastic growth that happens in cities, it is accompanied by some negative things, and we can do a lot to try to prevent or mitigate the impacts of that in our work in cities. So we have today a panel, a fantastic panel, which brings together expertise from very different areas, and I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion to see how all of these people come together with a common goal. We have Javier, who is a specialist in visualization and mapping, who is going to be telling us who has developed tools and platforms to look at this issue. We have Jorge, who works with the Office of the President in Mexico. And also on citizen participation for violence. We have Carlos, who is the person who has, I think, among all of us, the most technical background in crime prevention and is also operative. Okay. And then Rodrigo, who works in Lima with a firm that has a platform that is used for citizen engagement and participation in these issues. So I think it's better if they do their own introductions and tell us all how they work in this issue within their own sphere and in their own countries. So I will stop my introduction here and leave it to them to talk about their specific work and what brings us together in this conference. I think we are going to try to limit our interventions to about 10 minutes to leave enough space for questions and for a little bit of an engagement to be part of the panel. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Very glad to be here. So I'm actually also not an expert on crime and violence per se. So my background is more as a scientist, particularly on biology and biodiversity, climate change. But because of the work that we've been working for past years, open a little bit of our website, we happen to have to work with a lot of data regarding about crime and violence. So my name is Javier de la Torre, and I'm the CEO of a company called CartoDB. So we developed a software technology to allow people to create maps on the web. So because of crime and violence, just being something that it's very localized. Well, in reality, what we like to say is, everything happens somewhere. So if you think about it, crimes obviously happen somewhere. So when you think about studying it from a geospatial perspective, things like maps and geospatial analysis can be very useful when, helping on studying the different cases. So our software is being used by many different organizations around the world. A lot of them are using it on the context of crime. But I thought more than actually just showing some examples from some of our users, I thought actually about making some maps, showing how easy it is nowadays to kind of analyze crime data and come up with some reports that can be useful. So I'm just going to give you a short demo of how you will do something like this. So a lot of cities are starting to opening up their data about incidents, crimes. One of them is the city of Chicago is doing an amazing job and actually publishing the information almost on a daily basis. So they're using a platform where they every day they just load data from the previous. So it's almost, I think it's becoming almost real time. So you can access here all the incidents that the police has been working, and you can use it for different kind of like analysis. So the platform where they publish it is and this one is called Socrata, and it allows you to visualize more or less, there's incidents everywhere. One of the interesting things that they make the data publicly available, so you can just click on CSV, for example, and download just that part of the data. There's many formats that you can download this. In this case, particularly, they also like providing the location where the crimes happen, and that enables us to, once you create an account on CarTV, to just drag and drop the file that I just downloaded, and it will get imported into the platform. So what this is doing is importing the data and doing the transformation, so that later we can visualize it. Yeah, I just use CSV, but you could have been using something like Excel or any other format that's more geospatial. So what we have here is all the different incidents. So think of them like in an Excel spreadsheet. So each of these is an incident where the police have been involved, and we have information, for example, of what was the location. So things like it was an apartment, it was a sidewalk. So we also have like things like what was the primary description, like there was like narcotics, battery, say that. So you got a ton of information here, but it's hard to see it this way. We click on map view, we can already get a different perspective from the data. Now, this map that you're seeing here, that's a little bit of an issue. It's just like, it seems like there's crimes all over Chicago, right? Actually, there's crimes all over Chicago, of course, but there's some places probably there's more crime than others, right? And this type of maps that you see very often on internet, they do a poor job actually at telling you, like where it actually happens. And this is because there's too much data together. So with CarTV, you can do things like, for example, I can start doing like an intensity map. So this will allow you to already explore in a different way, like what is the data, like what are the areas where there's more crime. So you can of course click on each of the points and get some information. Sorry about it. I'm gonna say here, like I'm just gonna display the primary and the secondary description. So I say like this is a theft of something under $500 gain. So yeah, so we got already some insights straight away by visualizing the data this way. Now, I'm gonna do other type of visualizations that can be useful in this case. One of them is where you start like visualizing it over time. So what I downloaded, I didn't explain here, is the data over the last month in Chicago. So I just downloaded all the crimes in Chicago over the last month. I'm gonna use this type of visualization that helps you to visualize it with a temporal perspective. So what I'm doing here is just like animating it over time. I'm going to, sorry, I forgot to have to make one column. I have to make it a date. For you to understand it, just gonna change this to a date. We'll be able to make a map, an animated map with that. So 1 second, date of occurrence. So now I'm looking at the last month, and I can see where these crimes were happening. I can change some things like, just gonna make it a little bit more apparent, and make it, something like an animation over 10 seconds. Gonna remove some things so that you get a little bit of an idea. And now what we are looking at here is, is how it's been this last month, how, crime has been evolving in Chicago. I can also filter it, so I can say like I'm only interested in things like primary descriptions. So I'm just gonna I only want to see thefts. So I'm just gonna, those are the cases, where there's when they're happening. So by doing this type of analysis, it really helps. I mean, you're just showing a very, very, very basic example of how you can visualize this data. But I think it can give you a little bit of an idea of like what is the possibility nowadays with current technology. Also wanted to, before going, just passing to the next one, so wanted to display, like, just before we come here, like there's the police, like have here a very popular account. So we just like, one of the things that you can do now with CarTV is to import, for example, tweets. And you can import tweets that are mentioned in a particular word. So just before coming up here, we just did a search of all the tweets over the last day mentioning the word política, right? So, and this is what you're seeing here now, and just got imported. sorry, it's all the tweets that have been geolocated. That means that, like the user decided to set the latitude and longitude, so the location. So now we can see like where is people talking about the police. Again, like you see a map, it just seems everywhere. But I'm gonna do an intensity map and we will get a little bit more of information. And some of the things that we can see, I'm gonna change the base map, so it's a little bit more apparent what we're trying to put here. Hopefully you can get a little bit of an idea. I'm gonna make it a bit more transparent because it's really, really popular lately. And well, one thing that we can see is like, yeah, like the police in Spain is doing an amazing job on the social networks, as you can see here. I mean, in Twitter, and see like how it's. I mean, like just Spain is full of Spanish. Sorry.
It's Spanish.
Sure. It's a good point, yeah. But I mean, like, for example, I mean, like in Mexico and so on, there's also should be a lot of tweets. I mean, like, not every country, has the same density of tweets, Like, I still have searched for policía, police, in different languages to have a more concrete one. But I think it also says a lot, about how popular it is here. So that's just a little bit of a demonstration. I'm just going to also animate it because I think it can be very interesting also. So I'm just going to put it over time. I'm going to remove here, and we're going to see over time when people are tweeting more about policía. So actually, sorry, this is not entirely true. What I did here is just search for @policía. So it means that these are tweets mentioning the account that later we're going to be hearing about. So you can see like how this effect, and you see this flashing effect. That's likely it's at night. So you can see how it actually like it flashes. So yeah. So for example, I'm gonna look at filter over the time. 1 second. Push the time. And we can see already like there's like some specific times where the account seems to be much more active. So you can see like at night seems like when the account really, really gets popular. And most of it is at night in Spain. So you can see like that one already, like a lot of the traffic here. Okay, so I think that's just give you a little bit of an idea. Thank you very much.
I was going to speak. Hello. Hello. Okay. I was going to speak in Spanish, but I think that everyone is more or less English, and I will speak in English. In the last 15 years, I didn't speak in English, but I hope I will do it. And my presentation is in English because I recently, the last week, I've been to OECD to speak about social media and the governance. I don't know if you know that we are the world leader in social media use in deployment, and I'm going to try to explain you very quickly because we are with a very short time. Okay. I'm going to speak in English because everyone is speaking in English. Okay. Well, now we're going to speak about the project of Policía, Spanish policy in Twitter. We are the world leader, not only in quantitative. The most important for us is the qualitative. Vale. Bueno, si os parece, voy a hablar entonces en español y la presentación en inglés, ¿vale? Podéis ver, vamos a hablar del servicio público 2.0. Es muy importante para nosotros. Dos S, tenemos dos obsesiones, son dos S. Las dos S son seguridad y servicio público. Es todo lo que nos concentra y estamos muy obsesionados por algo que ahora llaman gobierno abierto. La verdad es que yo soy de la comunicación, procedo de la comunicación, y de la comunicación me he convertido ahora en un trabajador del servicio público, de la gestión pública absoluta, ¿no? Tanto en seguridad como en otras cuestiones. En primer lugar, una reflexión, cómo hemos cambiado, la comunicación, cómo ha cambiado en lo que antes era una comunicación tradicional, en una sociedad tradicional, en un instituto tradicional, y de repente nos hemos cambiado absolutamente antes no era bidireccional, antes no era reactiva, solamente encuestas y preocupaba a la gente los medios de comunicación, los políticos. no importaba lo online, daba igual, se decía, oye, no pasa nada, no tiene influencia, no tiene importancia, ¿no? Y no era bidireccional. Y utilizábamos una serie de canales que podéis ver ahí, pues el periódico, la nota de prensa, el escaparate, el acto corporativo, en definitiva, era mirarnos mucho al ombligo y decir a la gente qué guapos somos, qué bonitos somos y mirad todo lo que hacemos, ¿no? Ha cambiado, la web 2.0 primero nos permitió, llegamos muy temprano a la web 2.0 y esa web 2.0 nos permitió primero llegar a la gente más cool y luego cuando estaban ya todos, pues era entonces llegar a todo el mundo. Antes decía que qué bien que nos permitió estar con ellos, no, nos exigió estar con ellos porque donde está la gente tenemos que estar nosotros, es inevitable, ¿no? Y luego nos permitió, no, nos exigió orientarnos a sus necesidades, a sus inquietudes, a todo lo que podíamos aportarles. Dejamos de hablar de cuestiones que no les importan. Yo siempre pongo un ejemplo para hablar del FBI. El FBI tuitea, por ejemplo, detenido un asesino, un criminal en Arkansas. Y yo siempre digo que eso solamente interesa a la familia de la víctima, a la familia del criminal y a la manzana, porque es muy cotilla, ¿no? A donde viven. Pero luego a nuestro, bueno, por supuesto a los nuestros, a nuestro equipo, que se ha dedicado a la investigación y la ha detenido, que le supone una gran alegría, ¿no? Profesional. Entonces, al final digo, oye, hablemos de lo que interesa a la gente, y en España hemos hecho eso, dedicar todos nuestros esfuerzos a servir a la gente, a ser útil a la gente, a orientarnos a ellos. En definitiva, yo siempre hablo también de que los restaurantes de comida rápida, el fast food, dicen, tú llegas a dicen, ¿may I help you? Pues esa es nuestra gran obsesión, ser el camarero que quiere ser útil al ciudadano, ¿no? Ser útil con información, con comunicación a través de ellos. Para eso es muy importante que hemos pagado algunos peajes, no lo olvidemos, y esos peajes se convierten en primer lugar en el trabajo, un trabajo intensivo, muy fuerte, en el lenguaje, un lenguaje también muy impactante. Hablamos como hablan ellos normalmente, los temas también, antes no se hablaban los temas que nosotros ahora hablamos a través de las redes sociales, es los temas y el lenguaje absolutamente orientado al canal, no hablaríamos así en un acto público, y así lo hacemos a través de las redes sociales, ¿no? Y luego los ganchos publicitarios que vamos a ver, ¿no? Tenemos una parte muy clara y es que no queremos hacer comunicación corporativa, ¿vale? La comunicación corporativa, o al menos entendida como tal, lo que queremos en el fondo es ser útil, aportar utilidad desde estos nuevos canales y hablar de cuestiones que pueden ser útiles para todos, ¿no? Al final es muy importante hablar de la utilidad y del contenido y decir, oye, ¿qué utilidad, qué contenido podemos aportar, ¿no? ¿Qué acciones hacer? Y vamos a intentar satisfacer al usuario, si lo conseguimos, es útil para todos. Y luego, por último, pues también nos gusta hacer mucho, obtener todas las utilidades que nos puede dar la web 2.0, que nos han dado muchísimo, ¿no? Para eso yo siempre hablo de que somos el programa más claro de gobierno abierto y de inteligencia colectiva que hay en el mundo, en la actualidad, a través de la web 2.0. Lo voy a demostrar con datos, porque me podéis decir, bueno, es subjetivo. Pues no, yo os voy a aportar que es absolutamente objetivo. Estos son cuáles son los usos y los objetivos que tenemos nosotros con el uso de las redes sociales en España y en la policía. Podéis ver, por ejemplo, básicamente hay un montón de acciones que, en primer lugar, queremos ser servicio público. Y si somos servicio público, para nosotros es ya un gran éxito. Si conseguimos transmitir seguridad objetiva y subjetiva al internauta y a Internet, es fantástico, ¿no? Luego, por otro lado, pues hombre, ¿cómo lo hacemos? Pues a través de información, de concienciación, de prevención, información de servicio público, de interés para todos, ¿no? Es muy importante para nosotros, además, el que hemos abierto nuevas líneas de actividad. Si fuéramos una empresa privada, diríamos de negocio, y hemos conseguido hacer prevención, ser el líder absoluto en España de la prevención y la concienciación en cuanto a seguridad y servicio público. Veremos ejemplos. También, por supuesto, pues asistencia, atender al ciudadano. No teníamos un teléfono de atención al ciudadano, teníamos un teléfono de emergencias y antes le decíamos, acuda a comisaría a preguntar esta duda, ¿no? Y ahora la atendemos a través de las redes sociales. Se lo atendemos de forma muy rápida. Luego también le hablamos de nosotros, pero muy poquito, porque les interesa muy poco las noticias al final. Y le interesa mucho más la utilidad, el qué me aporta a mí, ¿no? Y luego también, claro está, pues contenidos nuestros. Muchos contenidos nuestros, es inevitable, ¿no? Y esto, ¿qué conlleva? Hemos conseguido aglutinar un liderazgo muy importante, ser referente absoluto en España de seguridad. El liderazgo no solamente en seguridad, en security, sino en safety también, muchas veces en protección civil, en salud, veremos algún ejemplo también, ¿no? Al final, todo el mundo nos ve como servicio público, el mejor representante de cuando hay algo importante de verdad, aparece la policía, ¿no? Y luego, pues hombre, es inevitable, yo me dedico a la comunicación, provengo de la comunicación, y es inevitable hablar de reputación, de posicionamiento, de liderazgo, de una nueva percepción de la gente, y luego el liderazgo en cuanto a seguidores, en cuanto a bueno, visibilidad, en definitiva, ¿no? Luego, como no, pues también habría que hablar de colaboración ciudadana. Ese web 2.0 que ha significado el gobierno abierto puro y duro es colaboración ciudadana. Enorme, increíble, directa, ¿no? Y esa se consigue con comunicación bidireccional, ¿no? Muchos me vais a decir, bueno, pues podríamos hablar mucho tiempo y en qué se transforma, ¿no? El ROI, el retorno de inversión del que hablan en las empresas privadas, y yo digo, pues resulta que no lo buscábamos, pero tenemos también muchísimo retorno de inversión directo, el operativo. Yo no soy policía, soy el único de mi equipo que no soy policía, todos los demás son policías, de los de verdad, de los que van armados, ¿no? Y paradójicamente, pues hemos conseguido todos estos resultados que veis aquí, ¿vale? Pues más de 500 detenidos gracias a la Twitter redada, 16.000 correos recibidos, gracias a dinamizarlo a través de las redes sociales, única y exclusivamente, ¿no? Luego, pues paralizar la difusión de vídeos sexuales, la detención de varios fugitivos muy peligrosos, ¿no? Luego, pues evitar fraudes, alertar de phishing. Somos el referente absoluto en España de todo lo que lleva seguridad, ya sea tecnológica, ya sea ciudadana, sea como sea, protección civil, ahí está la policía, el gran referente. Cuando hay algo que es realmente importante, ahí aparece la policía, ¿no? Y luego también, pues hombre, cuestiones de identificar víctimas, localización, y veremos también con localización de algún tonto conductor, y por supuesto, pues recientemente activar un protocolo policial por secuestros virtuales en Latinoamérica, estafas en los cuales parece que están secuestrados, ¿no? La innovación nos ha llevado a una herramienta como Twitter Alerts, en la cual somos líder mundial en número de suscritos también, ¿vale? Y en la cual tiene que mejorar todavía tiene que mejorar Twitter este tipo de herramientas, pues porque tienen que ser geolocalizadas, una serie de circunstancias y demás. Y luego, para nosotros ya es muy útil estar preparados para situaciones de emergencia. Y creo que nosotros estamos ya muy preparados. Ayer volvimos a demostrarlo, un incendio importante en Burgos, una ciudad española. Supimos reaccionar y ser el referente absoluto del servicio público, ¿no? Pero bueno, en Twitter hemos tenido, bueno, pues mucha gente nos pregunta cuál es para nosotros la clave de la buena gestión en redes sociales y en lo público, ¿no? Y yo siempre hablo del I más U más I. La U es fundamental, la utilidad, la U tiene que ser enorme, el eje de todos nosotros es la utilidad, pero luego también no olvidemos el I de contenido interesante, es muy importante que sea contenido interesante de verdad, y luego que impacten, para prevenir, para ser útil, para aportar, que impacte. Si no impacta, si no indigna, preocupa, emociona, gusta, no vamos a lograr concienciar tanto, ¿no? Luego, bueno, pues es muy importante utilizar el contenido o el lenguaje que emplean los propios tuiteros. Los que entendéis un poquillo, bueno, los que entendéis el español veréis algunos ganchos, algunos términos muy propios de tuiteros o de internautas, socarrones, irónicos, bueno, impactantes para ellos. Hablar de besis, todo el mundo sabemos que es un poquillo gamberro, un poquillo provocador, en definitiva, ¿no? Y todo el mundo dice, oye, es comunicación de personas para personas. Dicen, qué bien que son personas. Hemos humanizado a la institución, hemos humanizado la utilidad y la actividad de la policía, ¿no? Luego, por otro lado, pues hombre, es inevitable que dicen, oye, qué bien se desenvuelven. Llevamos 5 años y medio ahí y es evidente también. Luego, pues hombre, todo el mundo conoce que tenemos un lenguaje muy llamativo, muy directo, muy publicitario, con un montón de ganchos, y podéis ver las cifras son de récord. Muy pocas instituciones en el mundo públicas, ninguna, somos la institución pública más retuiteada del mundo, por encima de la Casa Blanca, y luego tenemos entidades como el Real Madrid, Barcelona, que nos ganan, ¿vale? Y jugadores de esos equipos, todo lo demás, pues somos el gran referente en cuanto a viralidad, en cuanto a crear comunidad. Generamos comunidad con un fin, que ahora veremos también, ¿no? Bueno, pues también vemos, mucha gente nos dice, oye, ¿es cómico? No, no somos cómicos, ojalá, si fuera cómico ganaría 10 veces más, probablemente ligaría más, sería fantástico, pero es mucho más importante al final decir, oye, generamos ese impacto, esa generación de comunidad, ese pacto que hacemos tuiteros y policía, decir, oye, alimentamos esta comunidad con una forma especial de prevención en seguridad, 26.000 retuiteos, no sé si lo veis aquí, canciones también para alertar la privacidad de seguridad en WhatsApp, y aquí abajo os muestro cuántos impactos potenciales ha tenido un tuit en el cual alertábamos de no te flipes con tu móvil que te lo van a mangar. 13.670.000 cuentas es el impacto potencial según Social Bro. El impacto potencial no son impactos reales, sino que podría haber llegado a 13 millones de cuentas, es decir, muchas más de las que tiene España, por supuesto, y Francia, puede que incluso el total europeo, pero hay mucho es de Latinoamérica, obviamente, ¿no? Lo más importante es que a todo el mundo le llegó en pleno agosto, cuando en España la gente pensaba que no se veía Twitter, resulta que todo el mundo lo ve, ¿no? Dependiendo del contenido. Luego también inteligencia colectiva. Nosotros hacemos comunicación de seguridad, prevención y concienciación de temas que no nos afectan directamente en la operativa de la Policía Nacional, sino de otros cuerpos de seguridad, pero que lo compartimos. Por un lado, el intermitente, por otro lado, cuidado con la rotonda, cómo se circula en la rotonda, y dicen, oye, ¿por qué hablas tú de ello? Pues porque yo soy el referente en seguridad y servicio público, ¿no? El WhatsApp de oro es un fraude, cuidado, no piques, o cómo poner el avisar a emergencias, el in case of emergency, pues el avisar a cómo ponerlo con los nuevos smartphones. Paradójicamente, este contenido nos lo dan los tuiteros, esta comunidad colectiva, en el cual me van cediendo todos los días ingente cantidad de material útil para la seguridad de todos. Fraudes, bullying, phishing, dudas. Es maravilloso esta comunidad. No sé si veis las cifras, pero bueno, el sentido del humor al pedirle a la gente que use el intermitente, 4.500 retuiteos, es maravilloso, ¿no? Es fantástica la utilidad. Pero luego también vemos, y hace muy poco hemos tenido que alertar de la privacidad. Es decir, oye, que el WhatsApp se pierde privacidad por un lado y por otro lado han salido ya el fraude. A las pocas horas de salir la nueva versión del WhatsApp existía ya nuevo fraude y rápidamente se puso un terremoto en todos los canales, en las redes sociales y fuera de las redes sociales. La gente hablaba de ello, los medios hablaban de ello. Entonces es inevitable, ¿no? Todo el mundo dijo, oye, el referente nuevamente aparece la policía para alertar de este tipo de fraudes. Las cifras, como os podéis imaginar, son enormes, siempre manejamos grandes cifras, somos líderes mundiales en número de seguidores, yo siempre digo, no es lo más importante, porque si yo solamente hablara de números me diríais, bueno, ¿y para qué, no? Hay otros muchos que tienen muchísimos seguidores y no lo utilizan o no les sirven para nada. Aún así, dejadme hacer una comparativa del sector en España y en todo el mundo. Por un lado, en España, pues otros organismos de utilidad masiva y luego otras policías del mundo también. Pero lo más importante, insisto, para nosotros no es los números, sino la utilidad. ¿Qué aportamos? Por último, pues bueno, vamos a ir abreviando algunos ejemplos. Una herramienta que empezó siendo muy útil, que nos demostró su utilidad en cuanto a movilizar, concienciar a la gente por la pedofilia, la pornografía infantil. Esto fue hace 2 años o 3, ¿no? Y luego, en cambio, pues hemos visto movilización para pedir donación de sangre en un accidente ferroviario. ¿Qué pinta la policía? En España no teníamos ninguna competencia, solamente que somos el referente absoluto de la seguridad, y ya que había otros 15 organismos que podrían tener más involucrado que ello, ¿no? Pero era de noche y los únicos que gestionábamos así, y somos el referente, somos la policía española, 17.000 retuiteos, ¿no? Luego, pues para desmentir bulos, es increíble la cantidad de bulos que tenemos que desmentir y que generamos comunidad. Bueno, lo desmentimos de una forma un poquillo peculiar y al final decimos como los anuncios en España, como las natillas, repetimos, ¿no? Y luego, pues claro está, con algunos tweets que han dado la vuelta al mundo, hablando de Breaking Bad, ¿no? Detenida en Madrid una pareja que por jugar a Breaking Bad en el sótano de su casa protagonizarán varias temporadas de Prison Break, con 8 millones de impactos potenciales. Dio la vuelta al mundo también la otra vez, en otra versión, y la verdad es que estamos muy contentos de la notoriedad. Ahí veis un vídeo, alguien sube un vídeo en YouTube haciendo una locura, una conducción criminal, y le hacemos una persecución. Él era de Barcelona, era un chaval de Barcelona, sube su vídeo a YouTube todo orgulloso, le perseguimos y en pocas horas tenemos 40 correos en los cuales nos alertan de dónde vive, ¿no? Acabó siendo detenido por su enorme imprudencia, que era delictiva absolutamente. Luego, pues hace muy poco con el ébola, el ébola, como no, pues todos conocemos el impacto que ha tenido. ¿Y qué pinta la policía hablando del ébola? Pues ya que nadie habla, pues nosotros tenemos que dar información de utilidad. Por un lado, por favor, no generes alarmismo innecesario. Ese tuit, cuando nadie lo daba, en el organismo que debió darlo, pues lo dimos nosotros. 5 millones de impacto potencial en España, 8 trending topics había entonces, uno de ellos era vamos a morir todos, ¿no? Y el otro era prevención sí, paranoias, bulos o falsedades no. ¿Cómo se contagia el ébola? Pues paradójicamente lo tenemos que transmitir nosotros, que somos el referente absoluto de seguridad. También en España, bueno, pues el 5 de enero, como sabéis, nos visitan los Reyes Magos, y nos visitan los Reyes Magos en camellos. Hacemos un juego de palabras con los dealers y a todo el mundo le encantó y conseguimos colapsar el correo antidroga@policia.es con una perogrullada, con una evidencia, ¿no? Buscamos a esos camellos y no a los de la cabalgata. Fugitivos, podéis ver cifras absolutamente asombrosas, 15.000 retuiteos, 15.000 veces compartido una foto de un peligroso fugitivo, 6.300 retuiteos, ese tweet 4.800.000 impactos potenciales en cuentas, ¿no? Y luego pues lo comparamos con el FBI, que entonces todavía tenía más seguidores que nosotros, ofrecían $1.500, pero no han generado comunidad, no han generado nada, y al final tienen 30 retuiteos nada más. No son capaces de movilizar. Aquí vemos otro pues con 6.300.000 impactos, 30.000 personas lo compartieron en Facebook, 7.300 en Twitter. La verdad es que es increíble, ¿no?, las cifras. Pues nada más, solamente decir que para nosotros es muy importante la colaboración de la gente, la web 2.0. Creo que ha quedado claro más o menos por qué decimos que somos el referente absoluto y por qué demostramos que somos el referente absoluto en el gobierno 2.0. Y bueno, nos tenéis para lo que queráis, ¿de acuerdo? Gracias.
Hola. I'm gonna do English. Let me see. A very brief presentation. I'm Jorge. I work at the National Digital Strategy in Mexico. Let me see. Wait, sorry. There you go. So my name is Jorge. There's my Twitter account. I'm also going to talk about Twitter because I guess it's the tool that helps the most, has created the most data in real time for crime prevention. I'm going to talk about 3 different cases in which we're working at the National Digital Strategy in Mexico that relate to making efforts towards bringing citizen participation towards crime prevention and violence, diminishing violence in the country. First of all, this is a little exercise that we started before launching our open data portal, which is in a beta version. I talked about it yesterday. And it was like a hot or not. Remember hot or not? Did you say yes, no, yes, no? So the hot or not had different topics, and very, I don't know, we really thought that it was going to be crime and violence, or crime and justice, one of the highest rankings. It is, but still it's the 4th. So we're wondering why that is. We really don't know, and we really didn't have the tools to have a follow-up with the users of the Datatron. But it's interesting that at least the people that are thinking and are interested in open data were not particularly interested in crime and justice as a first set of data to be released by the Datos Abiertos portal. Okay, I'm going to talk quickly about one of our projects, Agentes de Innovación. Agentes de Innovación is very similar and model after the White House Fellowship program that somebody else was talking about earlier. What we do is we work on a team, we create a team, and we're piloting it now with the first 5 teams, in which a government innovator and a foreign or like a entrepreneur from society that has done interesting things are brought together to rethink a solution for an old problem. And obviously violence and crime is the oldest problem ever. And through a tech-based solution, we're trying to face these sort of problems. Okay, let me jump quickly to the process. So these are all the partners that are working on it. So it's Reboot, which is a design/think tank, CIDE, which is a very very important research school in Mexico, the school from Stanford, and the National Digital Strategy. So what we're trying to do first is empathize, define the problem, and prototype a solution that is digital. This is what we the entrepreneur that was chosen, or that has been part of the project, has worked in a project in Monterrey called SIC, which is a platform for reporting crime, and that has created participation in the community. Monterrey is a northern city that has been hit by violence in the last 6-7 years, and these platform has brought together a lot of reports and they've linked the citizens with the stakeholders within government that would answer their reports. So this is like a quick video.
Monterrey se enfrenta a los problemas que afectan a todas las grandes urbes. Algunas veces es un bache sin reparar, otras un semáforo descompuesto o incluso un delito que nadie reporta. Ante esta situación, los servidores públicos se enfrentan a una gran cantidad de problemas que no siempre pueden llegar a resolver. Es común que pensemos que nuestra voz no será escuchada y que la apatía nos gane, ya que desconocemos cuáles son los medios para participar. Los servidores públicos también observan muchas necesidades, pero no tienen a su disposición espacios confiables para comunicar los logros y sufren de la falta de credibilidad por parte de la ciudadanía. Por esto, tanto ciudadanos como servidores públicos están frustrados porque aunque tienen la intención de generar...
Okay. Well, you know how the story ends. Then there's a platform in which you can report and you can bring together what citizens need and what the government needs from reporting. So the idea was to bring the person and the team behind SEEK to government and replicate their strategy in different cities. So there was a they realized that there were 5 major areas or metropolitan areas that could work with the same model. The model is based, it's very sustainable because it's paired with local entrepreneurs that are funding the initiative. So they identified 5 different areas in Mexico and they've narrowed it down to 2 in which they're going to pilot the project with local entrepreneurs. So now it's going to be, this was in Monterrey, and now they're gonna have it in Puebla and Toluca, which are in central Mexico. So the situation is very different, violence-wise, and the time it's very different. So we'll see how it replicates and see if the model works for further replication throughout the country. And now I'm gonna talk about really briefly about what we're doing with the National Program for Crime and Violence Prevention, PRONAPRED. PRONAPRED has identified 13 indicators that are related to crime and violence. Early teen pregnancy, use and abuse of legal and illegal drugs, lack of opportunities. And we proposed 2 things, which were, let's generate indicators that monitor the 13 risks that have been identified, and let's start measuring impact of the programs that PRONAPRED has released. So I think that the most interesting part is the proposal for the indicators. For example, we got to pool together private and public data and cross-reference it and try to find patterns in the way different polygons, or I don't know if that's a word, but polygons in cities are working, or how they're going when it comes to crime. So for example, for earlier teen pregnancy, what we're doing is we're using the public Google API of georeferencing what the searches are, and sort of matching it with what the locality has, with like health centers, crime, ingresos y egresos, which is like people going in and out of the hospital, and like the follow-up of maternal sort of cycle, and see if we can find any patterns that could tell us how what the people are searching, maybe about contraception, about teen pregnancy, is geolocated in areas that have more crime, that are more crime prone, versus those that are not, and see if these risk factors do hold, and it's the same for illegality environment, for example, we were really lucky to have one of the chain supermarkets or like corner shops give us all of their data on what happens in their shops, which is very interesting because they have data on graffiti, they have data on if they get mugged, if they get like a window smash, and they have data on the perimeter they're located. So, for example, they know if the park next to them is especially violent, or there's like people doing drugs there, and they have all of these reports all over the country. So we managed to get that information, and now we're crossing it and we're using it to see if it holds if there's any relationship between the urban environment and the polygons and the crime and violence data that we have as government. So that's the type of things that we're doing. And finally, I guess the idea is to start using these patterns and these indicators to prevent and have specific attention on certain areas. I was going to show you this video about a program that we're also that's called Glorias del Deporte that the government has, and we're also gonna see the impact of it. In this case, Glorias del Deporte has been very successful. It's a violence prevention program in which the kids they're out of school during summer. So there's these camps where they learn how to play football, and in some cities they play baseball, depending on how they do it. And finally, I want to talk about how we are trying to include young students and the community to the topic. Datatón para el Desarrollo was a hackathon, I guess, that we had in Zapopan earlier this year. Zapopan is a tiny municipality that is in Guadalajara's metro area. That's in Jalisco. Zapopan has been doing a lot of great things when it comes to data releasing. And the Zapopan Lab, with the National Digital Strategy, launched this challenge. We had public and private information data available. So we had Telefónica's local data, which is interesting. We had Foursquare available. We had Twitter pool from the last, couple months. 2 minutes, okay. And we launched the challenge, and we said, okay, let's see what you can do in these topics, which were crime prevention, rutas de patrullaje, so routes for patrolling. They're going to put new CCTV cameras, so we wanted to see if they could find a pattern or like something that could indicate with evidence where these cameras would be most useful. Anyways, the winner, it was a team out of students from ITAM, a university in Mexico City. So it's not even in Zapopan, which is also interesting because then launching these public challenges for events makes it more visible and the opportunity for people that wouldn't be inside the community but have the intelligence to interpret the data and use it could do it. So they did this algorithm in which they were what they were trying to do is how do you say this? They were using the Twitter feed, the Twitter API, and the Google API, and crushing it. They were using it with the. Okay, let me show the map. That's probably easier. Okay, so this is what we have. So. They realized that there were some areas in certain cities, this one is Mexico City, where crimes were repeating, and they had data on that. So they ran an algorithm, and what they did is they created smaller polygons that were like 200 by 200 meters, and they could narrow down like georeference where there was like a constant crime detection or crime reporting. And after they had that, and they had the areas well set, what they did is they were using the Twitter Live API and finding words that could be a crime report. So out of the whole of the Twitter API for a couple months, what they did find was that there was 5% of serious crime reporting using Twitter in Mexico, and specifically in Zapopan. So out of that 5%, what they were doing is they were localizing it if it was geo-reference, and they found a way, an algorithm in which they could in the area they had localized the hospitals. So what they were doing, it was just for hospitals, so it was just a prototype. What they were doing is, for example, there's something reported that would need a hospital in area, I don't know, in this point, and they automated the response based on that information, telling them where the closest, what were the instructions following up the report, without anyone having to say anything. Like and it would do it in 5 seconds. So as a first sort of like 2-week proposal of a prototype, it was very interesting, and it ended up winning the contest. And the Zapopan administration, the city, the municipality, is now working with them to improve it. It's interesting because although they only had like homicidios, like homicides, or they had like a very broad sort of set of words to search, they think that if they were to like refine it, they could find very easily the way to send like immediate responses to reports. So I don't know, this is something that we've been working on. We've been incentivizing the participation of the community towards preventing violence and crime. So yeah, that's it.
Where is it?
Ahí.
Okay, perfect.
No. Al lado del signo de menos.
Perfect. Sorry, I never used PowerPoint. Hi, my name is Rodrigo, and I'm the CTO of a tiny company in Peru that's called La Factura, and we have been working on a project called Datea since 2009, quite a while ago. And I want to thank the organizers for having the opportunity to share our experience with that. So first I'm going to introduce very briefly our tool, and then I'm going to jump right into the example that I want to talk about, which is about sexual harassment. Datea is a platform for crowdsourcing, civic crowdsourcing, and it was designed and developed in 2009 to originally map citizen reports about the bus rapid transit system that was being rolled out in Lima at that time. The name Datea and Todos Somos Dateros is, which means we are all data providers, is inspired by how the Lima public transport system self-regulates, which is by having these characters known as dateros, which you can see on the picture there. They give the buses information about how long the last bus passed. So it is a system that self-regulates from the bottom up, right? So the main premise of our platform is that we are all dateros. We can all share information with each other in order to achieve a better living together. So since then, quite a while has passed, and our platform has grown to become a tool for different organizations to harness the power of a crowdsourcing environment to achieve specific goals. And in this case, what I want to talk about is the example of the virtual observatory for street harassment, which is which is run by a collective of students or university students in Lima. And it was they used the tool Datea to gather experiences of women in the city about this issue. And it's also important to point out that they understand sexual harassment as a clear expression of violence against women and an endemic social problem in Peru, which is perpetuated also in media and in the different formal and informal contexts. So one of the largest obstacles they had as an organization was first to demonstrate that sexual harassment is indeed a problem that needs to be addressed by the authorities, right? Which is not an easy thing to do. Maybe some of you have seen this latest video about this woman walking in New York for 10 hours and she's being, called whatever for, I don't know, a very impressive video actually, like 6 million hits. So what they did with this platform is to generate this map, which is also a database of experiences by women. That is qualitative data that can be used for a variety of purposes, right? And it's a quite powerful tool in a way also for them because it allowed them to actually show the authorities and other people, hey, here, this is a real problem. We need to deal about this. We have so many women, look at the map, and that already had an impact to start a conversation. So right now, what is happening today is that after the leadership by this collective, they have achieved that today there's a legislation is now being designed at a national level to prevent and to stop sexual harassment in Peru. And the data that was gathered was also used to train the police at the municipality level in some districts in Lima in order to teach them how to deal with this issue, right? And one other important factor of this map was that as it is easily shareable through the web, it was shared throughout social media and the press, and that helped to push the agenda of this group into a national level. Perhaps one of the most important aspects of Datea is that it allows for interaction and dialogue of many different actors. Right? There's the citizens that report, there's the activists that are driving, in this case, Datea is not only made for activists, but in this case, this activist group is driving this. There's the public institutions and lawmakers and design and decision makers that also weigh in as they move together towards addressing this social problem. In this case, especially, I think that Datea moves beyond a tool that only captures complaints and reports, expecting normally unilateral action by, for example, the government, into a tool that helps articulate networks and processes of dialogue that can later be used to achieve something, as we can see from this example. The information in this platform can then be reused to impact public opinion and policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our speakers really for some amazing presentations. A round of applause, please. And in which we have seen the very innovative way of using technology and platforms to engage citizens to prevent crime and to help prevent crime, to help drive policies, to understand what drives these events, and as a result drive policies to try to reduce the incidence of crime. I think we are very short on time, but if we may at least open the floor for a few questions, I think there must be some people in the audience that want to ask our speakers something specific. We can't take too long, but we can take a little round of questions if anybody would like to move forward. Yes.
Small question. How many people is involved in the social media team at the police department?
Very few, very, very few. There are 8 people prepared of the team, of my team. Is the press office. All of them are prepared to work, to reply, but I try to make the strategy, the contents, planning efficiency, me, and then they more the attention of the citizen, reply to the people. But the most important, I think, is the strategy, the team. And I think that if it's only a few people, much better than a lot of people. A lot of people is a chaos.
I wanted. Oh, okay, please.
I think this is really interesting. Have you shared this research with a lot of other countries? I did some work in Brazil looking at the public safety in favelas, and we had a really hard time mapping, and so I think this would have been useful.
Is that
For any of you.
Sure. Well, I can take it. Yeah, I think like it's probably as we more towards more data-driven policy. I mean, we're gonna see a lot of like these techniques being applied. So the technology is there, and I think like people are starting to get the idea like like really looking at the data and and taking decisions based on data can really improve the efficiency of how they're working. So I think like we're gonna see much more. Like I said, like the technology is there, and I think it's been proven by all this what we've been showing today. It's like really very interesting analysis can be done that can help to really prioritize things. So it's a matter, I think, of like just how we're gonna get how it's gonna get adapted to different countries and the scenarios. Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge. I think the tools are there and they could be scalable and you could use them in different cities. Just speaking about the case in Zapopan, the tool could be used in either Mexico City, in I don't know, in Barcelona, wherever, because you have a Twitter feed and you have people talking about the same topics. But then the challenge is to have the data from the government side in the formats that could be fed into whatever we're doing. If we're mapping it, if we're analyzing it, and I guess that's the largest challenge to have better data.
Yes, actually, I work for the World Bank too, and we've been trying to map crime, and but it's very hard sometimes to convince the ministries of security to provide the data because they fear that it will be politicized by the media or by opposition parties. How have you dealt with these restrictions? How can we, or is there any specific study that can show the type of impact and benefits that can come out of this type of tools, monetized in some way, so as to use it as a convincing tool to work with ministries of security and public authorities that are sometimes opposing this type of
yeah, well, I mean,
projects?
it's always a complicated like trade-off there, like how you get it. I think like one way that I think can help is just to remove the friction. So like working with them to ensure that they start working with data, even if it's not in the public, it's already like an advantage. So a lot of times like some questions are taken with very little data that supports it. So actually just moving towards a more data-driven approach to taking decisions, I think is already the first step. Then how do they open it? I think this cases like with Policia, and Twitter, when you start like sharing data, what is the value that you can get out of it, then I think like it can be, like in a step towards, like being more open and really, like just releasing your entire, data. I think like that's one way of thinking, and I think about it. obviously there's like all these, like applications that are coming up, like related to the data, which frankly I don't think none of them have really become very successful. So I don't think we haven't seen any kind of like a killer app that says like, well, open your data if you want to get this because it's a killer app. I don't think that has happened yet. I don't know if it will happen. I hope it will happen. But if you think about like accountability, transparency, and things like that, I think like even from that perspective, the pressure into those people who are still holding the data is just increasing from so many sides that they're just going to have very, very few reasons to kind of just still keep it. So I think like it really is about like removing all the friction so that they can just not avoid it eventually.
I guess also adding up to that, I know it's important to create sort of like to make them hungry, people in government, to make them thirsty for evidence-based policy making, and from our experience, we've been playing with what we've been given, and then adding up the private sector data because they're a sector that is very interested in improving the violence rates or the crime indexes, and they're interested in having a safer country or a safer city. So they provided information. So the idea is we play with that and we show it to people in government, and that might create a thirst and a hunger for starting to take decisions, taking advantage of the information that they already have. Without opening it sometimes, but maybe within they could start doing evidence-based decision making, which is a big step in countries like Mexico. So for example, we're focusing on that, like how can we use data for making better decisions. If we open it or not in this moment, it might not be our priority, crime and violence data. But if they allow us to play with it, even within the government, then that's a step forward.
I had a question, if I may. We were having a very interesting discussion before we started the session about the perceived risk or real risk of retaliation for posting this type of information if you're just a citizen who is reporting something, and how you handle that and how that plays into the quality of the data that you get, maybe by gender or by like areas of a city where it might be more or less risky to tweet or to put in a platform this kind of data. Perhaps Carlos, you can talk about that, whether that is actually something that is more of a perception than an actual risk, and how you handle that.
Yeah, there are many times that we have completed some challenge, very difficult operative challenge, after create a big community, the most important, the biggest community in action, not only communication, true action, operative, and we got it thanks to some tolls. We paid some tolls in our language, in our uses, and then we got our excellent output after a great input in some language resources, and then try. I used to say there are many people that they don't take risks. They say, oh, I don't want to take risks, I don't want to get wrong, and I don't want to get some fail. I have hundreds of fails, but then I think there are many people that they say, okay, you aren't going to get the success, and we just.
Pero yo estaba hablando más de riesgo o percepción de riesgo del que tuitea de que se te va a ver retaliación por poner esa información o por estar denunciando algo y que te vayan
No. We used to say to the people, please, we're really very thankful for them, thanks, but please send us your reports, your information, your collaboration by mail. Mm-hmm. It's for security, privacy, it's operative. Please send us to this mail, antidroga@policia.es, all day. Please send us your report, your information, your collaboration, but never on Twitter. We used to say, don't put your pedophile links, never on social media, please, on mail or to our web. We have a program, a formulary, and you can complete that formulary.
So you do not get the posting. People don't tweet you the information.
No. We say, please, we need your collaboration. It's very important for us, but never on the social media. We used to dynamize, activate a lot of, please send us your information. More of 16,000 mails to antidroga@policia.es or many other one to our web, to other mails. You can ask for some exhibition, every kind of participation, but never on social media. It's privacy, it's security, it's operative. We need that. Then it's, I think it's useful, the most comfortable for them and for us.
Okay.
Yes, I think that there's a difference, of course, if the crime is really at the level of crime, right? I mean, in the case of the map that we had, we're talking about sexual harassment. It actually it's a different topic because it wasn't perceived as a crime in the legal sense. So people first had to come out, and it was kind of a protest in a way for people coming out and saying, hey, this is something that is affecting us. So I think that in the particular case, but only in the particular case of our map here, it actually helped that people came out and raised their voices.
Okay. Unfortunately, we have to close the session. It's late. Thank you so much for everybody for being here, for listening, and to our speakers again.
Thank you for making it.